When I saw this story today, I said to myself, it sounds very familiar, like a story I've done on my channel or talked about at one point, because I do a lot of stories on my channel, but if I can remember a face, then it'll all come back to me. And this face right here sticks out to me like a sore thumb. So, this kid's name, or this boy's name, is Gregory Ramos, or Ramos. I'm not exactly sure how it's particularly pronounced. And a couple years ago, he strangled his mother to death after they got into an argument over a bad grade that he received in school. A bad grade, y'all. That's why he killed his mother. At least that's the reason that he gave. Now, that was back in, I think, 2018. Now it is 2021, and he has now been sentenced to 45 years in prison. Let's get into it. And you can just look at him and tell something is off about him. Gregory Ramos was a 15-year-old University High School student when he strangled his mother to death after an argument over a bad grade. On Friday, Ramos stood before a judge and said he accepted responsibility for his crime and apologized to family members. Because of my actions, I will never get to truly know my mom, Ramos said. Not only have I stolen my mother from myself, but I have stolen her from everybody else as well. From my stepfather, I took his other half. From my aunts and uncles, I took a sister and lifelong friend. And from my grandmother, a daughter. I have done an irreversible harm to the world and them, said Ramos, who was now 17. Why did this happen? Why would I have done this? I refuse to make excuses for myself. I can only plead for forgiveness. During the sentencing hearing, which was broadcasted on Zoom, Circuit Judge Sandra Upchurch sentenced Ramos to 45 years in prison for first-degree murder in the killing of his mother, Gail Clevenger, age 46. The prison time on that and other charges were specified in an agreement reached last month in which Ramos pled guilty to the charges. Ramos, who was an Orange City police explorer at the time of the crime, was also sentenced to 15 years on the charge of abuse of a body and 5 years on the tampering charge, according to the plea agreement, which also called for Ramos to serve all sentences concurrently. Ramos received credit for 800 days spent at the Volusia County Branch Jail. Because Ramos was a juvenile at the time of the crime, he cannot be sentenced to mandatory life without any chance of release. Ramos will receive a review of his sentence after he serves 25 years in prison, at which point he could be released. Ramos would have received that review had he been convicted at trial. The agreement also calls for Ramos to be sentenced to lifetime probation, but he can seek early termination of that probation after 10 years. And the state can impose early termination of probation, and it will ultimately be up to a judge whether he is released early. Ramos killed his mother, Gail Clevenger, age 46, at their home at 35 Alicant Road in DeBerry on November 2nd, 2018. After the argument over a bad grade, he then buried her body behind a nearby church. State Attorney R.J. Larissa has previously said he believes that Ramos was the youngest person to be charged with murder as an adult in the circuit since he was elected state attorney in 2008. Ramos took about 30 minutes to strangle his mother with his bare hands. Now I remember the story. That part right there is what brought it all back to me. When they said it took him 30 minutes, you gotta think, he held his hand around his mother's neck for 30 minutes. You would think it wouldn't take that long to strangle the life out of somebody unless they were not that strong, or because he blacked out so badly that he just could not let go of her neck. She was probably already dead, and probably in a few minutes. Afterward, Ramos placed her body in a wheelbarrow, pushed it outside, loaded it in the family van. He drove to the Holly Hill area before turning around to bury the body behind the church. After killing and burying his mother, Ramos called his friends Dylan Seglarek and Brian Porras to help him stage a burglary at his home in an attempt to cover up the crime. Seglarek, age 19, and Porras, age 20, were subsequently charged in the case as adults with accessory after the fact to first-degree murder. They were not present when Ramos killed his mother. Ramos asked for leniency for Seglarek and Porras. I am guilty of the crimes I am charged with, Ramos said. I don't deserve the mercy I've been shown, but today I ask you ask that you extend that mercy to my co-defendants. They do not deserve to be incarcerated for my actions. They never realized the full extent of the crime, nor took the situation seriously until law enforcement was involved. When they were arrested, they cooperated with police fully. While Porras has been released, Seglerek remains at the Volusia County Branch Jail on a $200,000 bond. Assistant State Attorney Andrew Urbanak called several of Cleavenger's family members to testify. One was her brother, Joseph Goretsky, who was her only brother. She also had 4 sisters. Goretsky described Cleavenger as a compassionate woman who loved her son and her husband and her family and friends. Ivy Wick, one of Cleavenger's sisters, also testified, describing her little sister, who was 22 months younger, as fearless and fiercely independent. She recalled sharing Barbie dolls as little girls and staying up late to talk. She said they took violin lessons together. She said Cleavenger, who earned a degree in architecture from the University of Miami, was accomplished in many types of art. Wick also said her sister survived an abusive marriage before marrying Ramos' stepfather. Wick said Cleavenger spent countless hours in Boy Scouts, which Ramos was a member of. Cleavenger also trained in karate with Ramos. So it sounds to me like she was a very hands-on parent with her son. I don't know if he was one of those overachieving type students that felt that, you know, he had to get all these good grades and one bad grade messes him up, and then she probably tried to calm him down and he just didn't want to accept it, or if it was the other way around where she was the overbearing parent and it went left. Wick wondered about her last communication with her sister. I don't remember if I told her I loved her the last time we talked, Wick said. In court on Friday, Ramos asked Wick and his other relatives for forgiveness. He asked for forgiveness from his stepfather, who was out of town away on business when Ramos killed his mother, and Ramos thanked his grandmother for forgiving him from the beginning. Grandma, thank you for forgiving me since day one. Thank you for supporting me. Ramos said his grandmother sent him a text message and emails even when he was on suicide watch at the jail. He said he tries to be guided by his mother's memory. Every day I try my hardest to honor my mother's memory. I try to live the way that she would have wanted me to live. Ramos said he has earned his high school diploma and tries to help other inmates with their school and legal work. Assistant Public Defenders Matt Phillips and Rosemarie Peoples called Cleavenger's mother, Catherine Goretsky, to testify during the hearing. She stood at the lectern and spoke about her daughter and the grandson who killed her. She was beautiful, intelligent, compassionate, thoughtful, and determined. She had many friends. Catherine Goretsky, who lives in Sanford, says she spent a lot of time with Gregory in his early years. He has brought me so much joy and happiness in the 17 years he's been on earth, Catherine said. She said that Ramos has not complained in the time that he's been at the Volusia County Jail. The grandma said she was 84 years old and had recently been in hospital for congestive heart failure and pneumonia. She said she had lost much of her eyesight and couldn't see Ramos from where she stood about 8 feet away. The grandmother asked Judge Upchurch for permission to approach Ramos close enough so she could make out his facial features and say a prayer. The judge allowed it at the end of the sentencing. She walked up to the defense table. Ramos stood on the other side of the table and removed his face mask. The grandmother said a prayer over her grandson, and soon after that, Ramos was led away. I remember when this story is all coming back to me now, and I remember when I first heard about it, I said, wow, like, that's all it took. But the part that got me the most was the fact that he held his mother down and strangled her for 30 minutes. And I think that's what moved this thing up to a first-degree murder charge, was because of how long he held her in that chokehold, well, in that stranglehold. I think it was because of that. That definitely had to be the reason. Otherwise, it would probably be it probably would have been second degree. But then he brought his friends over to stage to make it seem like it was a robbery, so they took that into consideration as well. So that could have been the reason they upped it as well. But hey, like they tell us, if you do the crime, you do the time. And hey, it is what it is. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this story down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. If you haven't done so already, please text that number that is pinned down in the comments below so you can receive notifications every time I upload a new video, and I will talk to you in the next one.